Hi, Gary Chillingworth here for Airgun World Magazine, Shooting and Country TV. Welcome to Life at the Range. Well, we're out here on the range. It's not raining for around about 30 minutes, so I thought I'd rush out here and film today's video. And what we're doing today is we are answering a question from one of our viewers. And he basically said, modern rifles, they've got adjustable butt pads, adjustable cheek pieces, adjustable depth and all of that. How do you go about setting up a rifle for HFT or hunting? What are the optimum settings and what do you do first? You do the cheek piece first, you do the butt pad first. What do you do first? So I thought, do you know what? That is a brilliant question to answer, and also it's something that we can do here on the range because it's currently raining at Malden District. Now, before we get into that, I want to say a huge thank you to all of you who answered our last video where we were talking about silent targets. Got some brilliant answers, all the way from shredded up pairs of old jeans to plumber's putty, which seems to be a really popular one to try, and was it shredded rubber. So I've given Dirt Diggler a call and he's sending me a consignment. So that video is going to be coming very soon, and we're going to see if we can get shooting in the garden as quiet as possible. Well, that's enough said. Let's get on with the rifle and let's see about adjusting the gun to make it shoot as well as we can. Okay, so if you've got a rifle, you know, like this, the BRK Ghost, or an HFT 500, FTP, XTI, HW100 KT, they're all going to have a couple of things in common. They're going to have an adjustable butt pad, they're going to have an adjustable cheek riser, and probably an adjustable hamster. Now, this particular rifle doesn't have an adjustable hamster, but we will come on to that in a bit. But what do we go with first? Well, before we get into that, I want to say a huge thank you to Brocock and Tony. Those of you who are a little bit more observant will notice this doesn't look like the usual BRK. That's because I've got a new bottle. I've got the big bottle. So essentially that's turned this rifle from a Brocock Ghost into a Brocock Plus. This is your original bottle, 0.3 of a litre. This one is 0.5 of a litre, I think. It says it on the side, so 0.48. 250 shots, 350 shots. Now, you can buy these bottles online at the Daystate Performance Centre. We'll put a link in the description below. And for many years, I've shot HFT, and a good friend of mine, Alex Larkin, he shoots a Steyr. And what he does is he has 2 cylinders. So he can go to a shoot, he can shoot a cylinder's worth of shots on the plinking range, slap a brand new cylinder on, he's got a full charge ready for the comp. Now these little ones do 250, these big ones do around about 350, so you're never really going to need, you know, you're not really going to have that issue. However, if you've got friends who've got compressors and things like that and they live a while away, a couple of bottles, 350 shots, you have 2 of these, that's 700 shots. So maybe 4 or 5 of you can get together, buy a compressor, buy a tank between you, and just top up as you go, and there you go. You know, it's a much more efficient way of shooting. Right, okay, so setting up the gun. Well, the first thing you need to do is decide what type of shooting you're going to do. And what I mean by that is, are you going to shoot up the peg or are you going to shoot off the deck? And part of that is going to tell you what sort of scope and what sort of scope height you're going to have. Now again, before, when you see me shooting this off sticks, this Ghost had a rail which sat on top of the dovetail, and on that rail was the swap prismatic. Even better if you show it the right way around. So that would sit on top of that, and that would sit on top of the gun. Now this prismatic scope is absolutely belted. Very little parallax error, and we've spoken about parallax error in the past. Essentially, put your thumb in front of you, close one eye, move your head about, and it looks like your thumb is moving. That's parallax error. But it's got very little error. Now, my eyes, we've spoken before, are dodgy, and I use error by moving my head around to judge distance for HFT. So a scope with no error is not really going to work for me for range finding. So that has come off. Also, when you had the rail sitting on top and you had that sitting on top of that, which is a high mountain in itself, the height over bore, the scope was sitting very, very high. Now, when you have a scope sitting very high over the bore, the perception is that I currently have a 40 yard zero, so at 8 yards I'm 2 mil dots below crosshair. When that scope was on, I was 4 mil dots below crosshair. But at 45, I've got a 40 yard zero. At 45 yards, on a standard scope, I'm half a mil dot below crosshair, and that was only a quarter of a mil dot below crosshair. So you're much, much wider at the closer ones and narrower at the bottom. The pellet still drops the same, but it's the perception. But when when the gun was rested on the ground and I was down here, with the height over bore, the scope was there, you can see my eye was nowhere near lined up with the scope. Now, if I was coming up the peg, you see my eye is now looking over the top of the scope, so it would have been correct. Just notice that's come loose. So that would have been correct. Let's tie that up. So that would have been correct. I want to get the scope as low as possible, and as you can see, I'm here on these sports match super low mounts, and even with this adjustable cheek riser, I can't get quite low enough to what I want. So I've taken that off, and I'm going to put a little piece of neoprene on there just for comfort. So now I'm absolutely central with the scope. So that's our first decision. Our first decision is I want to shoot this rifle from the deck, and I want the scope as low to the ground as possible. Right, so then what is our next thing that we adjust? The next thing we adjust is the butt pad. We move the butt pad down, and then we put our face on the scope and we look at a target, say 35-40 yards away. Now for me, because I've got a very, very wide body, not as wide as it was, but it's still wide, I need this to be at its absolute lowest point. So as low down as it can possibly go. So that's raising the rifle up as high as it can, so that when I'm on there, for me, that feels absolutely perfect. If I was skinnier, I would raise this up a little bit and maybe drop it a bit lower. But it all comes down to choice. But get this adjusted. Now, if you started off low and you're putting your eye behind the scope and you're not sure you're looking through the center of it, then we can use our old trick, and we'll go on to that next. Okay, now in one of our previous videos we spoke about wrapping the scope with tinfoil with a hole in the bottom, so that when you look through, as long as you can see through the scope, you know your eye is perfectly central. Well, a viewer contacted me and said, look, just get a piece of cardboard, cut it to the same size as the inside of your lens, slip it on the inside, and then that way every time you put your eye down, you know that you're absolutely perfectly central. Just a piece of egg carton. Shout out to Valerie Singleton for that. The beauty about doing that is when you're training, you can practice getting your head in a perfect position every time and building some muscle memory. But just remember, in competition, that would not be allowed, because you're not allowed to restrict the ocular or the objective lens when you're shooting. So you've got your butt pad to the distance so that you can physically get your head on the scope. And now what you've done is you've now got your hole in the middle, so you just need to adjust your cheek piece up and down so that you can be in the absolute right position. So butt pad first, then the cheek riser. Then we're going to get on to the hamster. Now on here, as you can see, I've got this absolutely beautiful rail and a hand stop. Now I've never really used hand stops in the past, but I know they've become quite popular, and I can now see why. I thought they were predominantly for standing and kneeling and stuff like that, but I've noticed that, you see where I'm laying here, my eyes perfectly on the scope. Well, that hand stop is now sitting in the palm of my hand, and that has given me an amazing amount of control. It gives me more grip. I can push the rifle slightly in and I can squeeze, and it just enables me to stable the rifle. Also, and this is something that I didn't quite work out, is because of the width. If I know that my hand is relatively flat and I put my hand up like that and I'm gripping on both sides, I can sort of tell much easier if the scope is actually, or if the gun is canted left and right, just because of this hand stop with this flat edge pushing into my hand. So I know that that is level. If I'm slightly canted on the left, I can feel more pressure on the left than I can on the right. So again, that is a really good thing. The reason we go for a deep forend is that when we're doing elevated shots, again, it gives you more depth so that your elbows and your forearm doesn't have to come as high. But the real reason we have a deep forend and the reason we have a hamster is for standers, and I'll show you why now. Okay, so if you've watched my videos on how to do a unsupported stander, you will know that the stander position is square onto the target, hip thrown forward, elbow into the ribs, and then you've got the rifle sitting there in position, so that you're not using any muscle structure to actually stabilize the rifle. The body, you know, it is literally just bone on flab. So that's like that. If you've got a rifle with a very shallow forend, the rifle will be hanging low, so you might have to come up so that the elbow is no longer pushing on the ribs. Certainly if you're coming up high, again with a very shallow depth, it's going to be harder. So a deeper forend enables you to get into a much more stable position to take unsupported shots, and that's why people like a rifle with a deep forend. Now, a question that always gets asked is, why is it called a hamster? Well, you'd really need to go and speak to Terry Doe about this from Airgun World, or now retired. Hope you're enjoying your garden, Terry. But you can still see Terry on Shooting and Country TV and appearing in the mags. But the story, as I remember, is Terry had a rifle. I can't remember what it was, but he needed some extra depth on the front. And he was round a chap, I'm pretty sure it was Dave Wellham. He was around Dave Wellham's house and said, look, I need some extra depth. And Dave disappeared off into his shed. Apologies if it's not Dave. And he comes back with a little piece of wood in his hand. I'll put the rifle down. And he comes back with a little piece of wood in his hand like that. And he's stroking it like that and making it move. And Terry goes, what's that? And he goes, oh, it's my hamster. And then he hands it over to Terry. It was the first wooden hamster. And the name stuck. Terry used to tell people, oh yeah, this is my hamster, I attach it to the front of the gun, and thus that is why a hamster is called a hamster. But essentially a hamster there is to give you more depth when you're laying prone and when you're kneeling, which I'm not going to do because I've still got problems with my knees, and when you're standing. and it just helps you with that extra bit of stability to allow you to get your elbow in your ribs and just stand like that. Okay, so here we are. We've set the gun up. We've got the butt pad adjusted. We've taken the cheek riser off so I can get my eye as low as possible. We're going to put some neoprene on that. We've got the hand stop. We've got the lovely new bottle at the front, which is going to give me that extra balance and more shots, because I certainly need practice. We've got a Zeiss Conquest 4 scope, which is an amazing piece of kit. So the question is, what kind of group can we get? So I'm going to fire 3 shots off just to double check my zero. It's going to go high. Still got this single shot loader on here, which I absolutely love because it helps you slow down. Well, I think we just put 2 through the same hole, so I think we may as well just go for it. Right, so 5 shots at the black dot. Well, I'm happy with that. We are at 40 yards. There's around about a 2 to 3 mile an hour wind, so nothing really to worry about. On the 3. I think that second one dropped a bit low. Okay, I think that was good. Don't know if you noticed there that I was trying to focus, you know, I was having some issues. Had an interesting, again, something we spoke about, talking about fatigue. Last weekend I shot the Malden Monthly, and for the first time in ages I actually got a good night's sleep the night before, and I shot a 51, about 5 points behind the top PCP, shot really well, had a great day, was quite a, well, not quite a bit, I think I was about 3 or 4 shots in front of the next springer shooter, so that's not a brag, but it's just saying that it does appear that fatigue is one of my biggest issues. And I've got up early because it's about 10 o'clock in the morning, so I should really be asleep because I do night shifts, and I am struggling a little bit with focus. But I think a video on fatigue and how it affects your shooting, I think it's certainly going to be on the cards. I think we've got 2 more to do. I think that went fractionally high. Right, so last one. Come on, eyes, focus. Oh, I'm really struggling there. Oh, that was terrible. And that last one, that was because I couldn't focus. I was really struggling. I was sort of blinking. Right, that group we've got top left. Let's just put 2 more in that, and let's see if we can just focus. Get my eyes working. I've also got the sun against me, and Uranus is in retrograde, and the Coriolis effect doesn't seem to be working. Right, so look at the card, top left hand side. Well, same height. I think I went fractionally left or right. I'm not sure which one it was. Going at the right hand hole. Right, so let's go and get the card and let's have a little chat about the group we just shot. Okay, so here is our card. That was our initial just tester, and you can see like that's well within the size of a small fingernail. Down here, we'll ignore that one because I'm pretty sure that's the one that I pulled low. But look at that group. We've got like 5 or 6 shots there, and most of them went through that same hole. Now again, a question I got asked in an email a while back is a bullpup as accurate as a full-size gun? What do you think? Also, it's more compact, so if you need something really lightweight, good for hunting, good for yomping around, I'm genuinely, the more I shoot this gun, the more I'm blown away with it. Now again, I had a chat with someone at the weekend, and they said, what am I going to be shooting in the Nationals this year? I'm going to be shooting spring gun. Couple of reasons for that. I've shot really badly with my Springer the last couple of years, and there's a part of me that feels like there's unfinished business. I don't want to leave Springer shooting sucking. I'm starting to get better again, so I'm shooting the Nationals and the Worlds this year, and at the end of this year, if I've done well, I think there's a good possibility that in 2025 I may very well be going back to PCP, and if Tony will allow me to continue to hang on to this, I may very well be shooting the Brocop Ghost. Still happy to be an ambassador for Air Arms, but I like to enjoy and try different things. But as ever, things are always open to change. But that is some amazing grouping, and what an amazing gun, and I'm absolutely love shooting it. Right, well, I hope that's giving you all the information you need on how to set up a rifle with all the multi-aim points and bits like that, and why you do it, and it will make your shooting better. Videos coming out on, what's the date today? It's coming out on the 6th. Which is actually in about 5 hours. On the 17th of March, if you fancy it, at Meon Valley, they are having a 50-shot SFT FT event. That's essentially, you can shoot everything prone, but out to FT ranges, 55 yards. The World Championships on the 6th and 7th of September at Borders Wood has opened, and they're about 60-70% full. So if you want to go to the HFT World Championships this year, go to www.whfta.org and book through there. UK HFT is open for booking, and we've got the first round in Misfits at the end of April, so I hope to see you there. And that's about it. Thank you so much for joining us here on the range. Take care of each other, take care of yourselves, and we'll see you all again very, very soon. Ta-da!